This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, with Ms. Benedict Spence. Delighted to be joined now by a columnist at the New York Post, Adam Coleman, as well, to talk about, politics stateside. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us once again. And I want to talk a bit about the Democrats, but I also want to talk about Donald Trump first, because Donald Trump has been appointing members of his cabinet to start after the inauguration on January the 20th. And there have been some very, very controversial picks. I mean, Elon Musk obviously will be outside of government, but offering, helping to run with Vivek Ramaswamy of this DOGE, this government efficiency department. But we've also had, extraordinarily in the last 24 hours, nomination for Education Secretary for the Linda McMahon, who is the co-founder of the World Wrestling Entertainment Organization. She's also his transition co-chair. We've also seen the appointment of, the nomination of Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz, to oversee healthcare of millions of Americans. And he's a man who basically, he's a trained surgeon, to be fair, but actually he's on telly. He found fame on the Oprah Winfrey Show. We seem to have a lot of people who are being appointed whose main claim to fame is they've given money to the Donald Trump presidential bid, and they're famous on the telly. Are these people going to be doing the job he really wants them to do, of actually disrupting the federal government and being game changers?
Yeah, I think so. What I would say is it's not uncommon for people who are part of the party. Most of the time, it's, if it was Democrats, it would be a bunch of people who were friends of donors, people who are connected. We wouldn't know who they are, and they end up in these jobs that we don't even care about. We don't think about, past a couple of days. But the reality is that many of these people are well known. Many of them are famous, ran for office previously. Vivek is an example of someone who ran against him at one point. So, they're coming under more scrutiny than years prior because we actually know who these people are.
Yeah.
As far as Linda McMahon, I know that she's somebody who was part of the Republican Party. I know she ran for office. I believe it was Senate in Connecticut. I could be wrong on that. It's been some time. But I know that she's been someone who's been behind the scenes for quite some time, probably also donating her time and money as well. She's a wealthy woman. So none of this really completely shocks me.
Well, no, indeed. And also, I was thinking, God, is this woman going to be, should be a good education secretary? There's been some pretty questionable appointments by a lot of parties, given what kids are being taught in a lot of American schools now, in terms of, the trans issue, the critical race theory, all things like that. The climate ideological thinking. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not sure that anyone being appointed wouldn't be better than what we've got now.
Yeah, I wonder if someone is going to stick to the message. I think the message was to essentially downsize and effectively try to handicap the Department of Education.
Yeah.
I think the objective was to make sure that the states have control over their educational system and not have this giant educational bureaucratic body and the federal government do so. So I don't know enough about Linda McMahon's experience or even just rhetoric surrounding education to say
I have
that
a funny idea that neither does Donald Trump, but he wants people who are just going to go in and just cause that trouble. Now, this is the interesting thing. This is what he's been elected to do with his landslide. He's got control of, he's got the public vote, he's got the electoral college vote, he's got Senate, he's got Congress, he's got the Supreme Court as well. There's going to be a lot of change happening. The question is whether he can keep on top of it and keep control of it. And then, of course, we're going to head to the 2028 presidential election. He constitutionally cannot stand. But a lot of people are already turning to what the Democrats will do. Of course, obviously, Biden out of that race. I was absolutely blown away when I saw a poll this morning showing that among Democrat voters, 41%, by far and away, the next person had 8%. By far and away, the top choice from Democrat voters to stand as the Democrat nominee in 2028 is, wait for it, Kamala Harris. These people do not understand what happened on November the 5th, do they? They do not get why they lost.
No, many of them don't. And, to be sort of fair, the election did just happen. And maybe in a half glass full sense, she had a few months to run for office and she lost by a few million votes. Maybe someone is looking from that perspective. And maybe if she had a year instead of a few months to run, that she might win.
Oh, no, I think it's the opposite way round. I think she could have had a chance of winning if they'd only heard about her for a week. And then the longer they saw her, the more they realised she doesn't have a sensible thought in her head and is utterly vacuous.
Yes, that's actually my belief. I actually thought that she started strong because she didn't say anything. And the more she talked, the worse it got. But I've been feeling this way since I used to be a Democrat, and I felt that the party has very little prospect as far as like a leader. Obama, whether you agree with him or not,
he was a leader.
At one point in time, he was a leader, and he seemed like someone who was the future of the party. They don't have an Obama. As a matter of fact, they tried to project Obama onto Kamala, and she is not that person.
No.
There's a reason why they resurrected Joe Biden to run for office, and he barely knew who he was.
Because they didn't have anyone else who was credible. And again, we saw what happened there. Adam Coleman, we'll have to leave it there. Time's against us. Thank you so much for joining us there.